So let's get this straight. There is a crisis. It's not a fuel crisis. The country has enough of that, as we've been telling you all week on GBNews. But it is a crisis in confidence. I think a crisis in confidence of our leadership, a crisis in confidence of our mainstream media, a crisis in confidence as to whether Brexit is being properly delivered, because our independence from the EU should have allowed us to get ahead of the international shortage of HGV drivers, and proof that 18 months of this debilitating cycle of psychological terror and lockdown and unusual way of living has taken a real toll on the British psyche. Earlier today, Boris Johnson finally spoke about the shortage. Here's what he had to say.
The number of lorry drivers that we're short in that particular sector isn't very big, but generally there is a shortage in that profession around the world. We now are starting to see the situation improve. We're hearing from industry that supplies are coming back onto the forecourts in the normal way.
But by this point, there was already violence on the forecourts of the UK petrol stations. I've addressed the fact that Boris Johnson needs to get a grip in a column today for the Mail Online. This is what I had to say. Your citizens have left petrol stations up and down the country dry, despite your ministers insisting there is no shortage of fuel. Why? Because we're scared. Because we've started to lose faith in government messaging over the past 18 months, with screeching U-turns at the last minute, often without a shred of evidence to back up why. Sitting back and sending out a string of incompetent morons from your weak cabinet to do your bidding, seemingly without any insight or any facts, is a dereliction of duty. Where is the strategic plan to assure the public there isn't a need to panic buy, and that the army won't be distributing fuel to key workers within days, hoping that all of this will quietly fade away once every tank has been filled? Shows you are either very naive or completely bonkers. So look, I understand the fear that you might be feeling tonight. I was really struck, actually, by a parent, an anonymous parent, who wrote on Mumsnet today. So all things considered, aren't we up bleak creek? Gas and electricity prices, COVID, council tax hikes, inflation, food shortages, Brexit, petrol. Sounds like something out of a dystopian nightmare. I'm worried, dear reader, and keep calm and carry on doesn't help. And then you've got Boris Johnson's bitter former advisor, Dominic Cummings, who's done his best to add to the turmoil today, writing on Substack that it is obvious that the government has failed to prepare for supply chain problems that we were discussing in May 2020. He added, and this will be worrying to some people, people I know who were ahead of the game on COVID, including some who work in or around Number 10 and worked on contingency plans in 2020, stockpiled some meat, bought oil for generators, petrol, etc. in the week of the 13th of September. I advised family and friends to do the same after checking with some people in government who said things like usual nightmare PM farce. Cummings is wrong, of course. Panic buying is an irresponsible act and a self-fulfilling prophecy. I do understand the temptation to buy up, but I beg of you not to. The results are entirely unnecessary in a country where there is enough food and there is enough fuel. But it is time for Boris Johnson to prove to a very worried, and actually a very understandably worried nation, that Number 10 Downing Street has a clear plan to get us out of this quagmire. Ongoing silence without providing the British public with a plan is unacceptable. Germany's most likely next Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, has already proven he is going to be an enemy of the UK. Immediately after his election victory on Sunday, the bloke dishonestly blamed Brexit for the current HGV driver crisis, even though the same HGV driver crisis is also impacting Germany and most mainland European countries. The SDP leader said, "We worked very hard to convince the British not to leave the Union. They decided different. And I hope they will manage the problems coming from that. What a cretinous welcome from Mr. Scholz to the UK, one of Germany's biggest allies. Need I remind him, and most important trading partners too. It's also baloney, given Germany currently has an HGV driver shortage of between 45,000 and 60,000, pretty much the same as ours. Mr. Scholz must be treated with the utmost caution by our government going forward. With desperate politicking like that after an election, he is not at all trustworthy. The government just won't quit the nonsensical idea of introducing COVID vaccine passports at both indoor and outdoor venues in England this autumn and winter. A Plan B proposal being consulted on by the government would see the venues impacted being increased beyond nightclubs, music venues, outdoor festivals, concerts and sports events. Where next? A vaccine passport to enter your local boozer? Or maybe the McDonald's across the road? This is not normal life. It creates a two-tier society. It puts far too much of an onus on private businesses to demand papers, please, of their customers. And it doesn't even work, because we already know that fully vaccinated folk can transmit COVID. Bin it. And I really feel the government should never have pandered to the Extinction Rebellion. Hear me out on this. Do you remember in 2019, when Senior Minister Michael Gove met with the eco-extremists to try and appease them? It obviously didn't work. I mean, they said as much. They insulted Gove almost within an hour of the meeting. But as a result of this mad meeting, the even madder Insulate Britain continue to threaten the government with further action on the M25 unless they bow to their demands to meet. We must not negotiate with terrorists, no matter how noble they think their cause. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.